At the age of 78, Barry Gibb has finally spoken openly about the truth regarding Andy Gibb. Born Barry Allen Crompton, Gibb on September 1, 1946, in Douglas on the Isle of Man, he grew into one of the most celebrated musicians, singers, and songwriters in modern music history. From his earliest years, Barry displayed an extraordinary gift for music, and his family quickly recognized his natural talent. Encouraged and supported, he began performing alongside his brothers Robin and Maurice. Together they formed what would become one of the world's most iconic groups, the Bee Gees. Their beginnings were humble, performing small shows in Australia during the 1950s, but the brothers' immense talent soon carried them to international stardom. By the late 1960s and 1970s, the Bee Gees had achieved remarkable success, securing their place as masters of harmony and pioneers of both pop and disco. Barry, with his signature falsetto voice, became the group's creative force, often taking on the role of chief songwriter. He co-wrote and produced countless hits, not only for the Bee Gees, but for other legendary artists as well. Songs such as Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, and Night Fever became timeless anthems of the disco era, defining the cultural moment shaped by Saturday Night Fever. Yet Barry's songwriting brilliance extended far beyond disco. He collaborated with and wrote for icons like Barbra Streisand, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Diana Ross, and Dionne Warwick. This versatility allowed him to craft hits across pop, country, R&B, and adult contemporary, cementing his reputation as one of history's most prolific songwriters. With over 1,000 songs to his name and decades of chart-topping hits, Barry's inductions into both the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stand as tributes to his enduring impact on music. While his professional triumphs are extraordinary, Barry's personal journey has been deeply intertwined with the joys and tragedies of family. The Bee Gees were more than just a band. They were brothers bound by both blood and music. The loss of his brothers Andy, Maurice, and Robin brought Barry immense grief, leaving him the last surviving Gibb brother. He has often spoken in interviews of the pain of outliving them, yet he has also carried forward their memory by ensuring the Bee Gees' music continues to inspire new generations. His resilience, dedication, and grace in the face of such loss make him a symbol of perseverance. Barry's falsetto became one of the most recognizable sounds in music history. His stage presence radiating confidence and warmth. Even after decades in the industry, he continued to perform with passion, reaching both longtime fans who grew up with the Bee Gees and younger listeners discovering their music for the first time. His career longevity proves a truth he has lived by. Great music never fades. His personal life, like his career, has been marked by milestones, challenges, and significant relationships. In 1966, at just 19 years old, Barry married Maureen Bates on August 22nd. At that time, he was still finding his footing as a rising musical artist, trying to balance a rapidly growing career with the responsibilities of adult life. Though they initially appeared committed to building a life together, the pressures of fame and the relentless demands of his career weighed heavily on their marriage. The couple lived together only a short time, and by July 1970, their marriage was formally dissolved. Barry Gibb's first brief marriage is often remembered as a formative chapter in his personal journey. It highlighted just how challenging it was for young stars to maintain stability in the whirlwind of 1960s pop culture. Not long after this early union ended, fate brought him face to face with the woman who would become the great love of his life. During a taping of the BBC's hugely popular program Top of the Pops in London, Gibb met Linda Gray, who was already admired in her own right as the former Miss Edinburgh. Gibb would later describe their encounter as pure serendipity, and the romance between them blossomed almost immediately. On September 1st, 1970, his 24th birthday, Barry Gibb and Linda Gray married, beginning what has since become one of the most enduring partnerships in the entertainment world. Their marriage provided the personal stability Gibb needed to withstand the storms of fame, industry upheaval, and even the devastating loss of his brothers. Together, Barry and Linda built a warm, close-knit family, raising 5 children: Stephen, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra. Their eldest, Stephen, carried forward the family's musical legacy, establishing himself as a guitarist and songwriter, and even working with heavy metal and rock bands, proof of the wide-ranging musical influences in the Gibb household. Today, Barry is also a proud grandfather of 7, finding added joy in the laughter of his grandchildren. Gibb often credits his wife and children with giving him a sense of purpose and grounding amid the often overwhelming demands of stardom. In 2009, he and Linda strengthened their ties to America by officially becoming U.S. citizens while still retaining their British citizenship. This dual identity reflected Barry's deep affection for his British roots, while also underscoring his long-term commitment to the country where so much of his adult life and professional success had unfolded. Though he had lived primarily in the U.S. since 1974, he always kept a home in the UK as a lasting link to his heritage. Barry Gibb's personal life also intertwined with that of another legend, Michael Jackson. In a 2014 interview with The Mirror, Gibb spoke warmly about his friendship with the King of Pop. Jackson often stayed at the Gibb family's Miami home, preferring its warmth to the chaos of hotel life. Gibb painted an intimate portrait of Jackson's playful, childlike side, sitting in the kitchen, watching fans on television from the safety of indoors, and laughing in his unmistakable high-pitched giggle, hee-hee. Jackson even lived upstairs for a time before his highly publicized trial, though Gibb emphasized that they never discussed the legal case. Instead, their bond rested on music and camaraderie, writing songs together, sharing wine, and, on occasion, drinking so much that Jackson would fall asleep on the floor. Gibb admitted he deeply misses him, not only as an artist, but as a friend he knew beyond the public persona. Real estate also became part of Gibb's story. In January 2006, he bought one of the most historically significant homes in American music, the former residence of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash in Hendersonville, Tennessee. His vision was not simply to own the property, but to restore it and turn it into a songwriting retreat where legacy and creativity could flourish. Tragedy struck, however, in April 2007 when the house was engulfed in flames during renovations and completely destroyed, erasing a piece of cultural history. Undeterred, Gibb had a new home built on the land, a quiet tribute to the spirit that had once lived there. By 2014, however, he chose to sell the estate, closing a chapter that had been marked by both dreams and heartbreak. At the age of 78, Barry Gibb finally opened up about the truth surrounding his youngest brother, Andy Gibb, in a way he had never dared before. For decades, Barry had carried the dual weight of being both elder brother and mentor, carefully protecting his private grief while choosing instead to honor Andy's extraordinary talent and charisma whenever his name was mentioned. But now, at a stage in life where reflection and honesty matter more than preserving carefully built walls, Barry allowed himself to speak with rare vulnerability. He acknowledged the complicated blend of pride, joy, regret, and sorrow that had always defined his relationship with Andy. Andy Gibb was far more than simply the baby brother of the Bee Gees. To Barry, he was a boy filled with light and promise, a naturally gifted singer whose effortless charm captivated all who met him. From the moment Andy began performing, Barry recognized glimpses of brilliance that rivaled the success he and his older brothers had achieved together. When Andy released hits like I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Shadow Dancing, Barry was not merely his co-writer and producer. He was his fiercest supporter, pouring his own creative energy into ensuring Andy's success. In those days, Barry often described Andy as the Gibb with the purest pop voice, a born star who might have commanded the world stage for decades. Yet behind the radiant smile and adoration of millions, Barry saw a fragility that few others noticed. The truth, he revealed at 78 was that Andy's meteoric rise came too fast, too young, and without the emotional armor to survive it. Barry admitted that he worried constantly about Andy's vulnerability, his hunger for love, his longing for acceptance, and the way fame's pressures magnified every insecurity. Andy, he explained, was thrust into the spotlight before he had time to grow into himself, leaving him exposed to the destructive temptations that came with sudden celebrity. Barry did not avoid the most painful part of the story: Andy's struggles with addiction. For years he had spoken carefully about it, never wanting his brother's legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. But in this later reflection, Barry acknowledged the devastation of watching Andy wrestle with inner demons. He described the helplessness of knowing that no matter how much love and support the family offered, Andy could not fully break free from the grip of drugs and the emotional turmoil that followed. Barry's truth was not one of judgment, but of deep, enduring sadness. He admitted to asking himself countless times whether there was more he could have done, whether a different kind of guidance, or perhaps tougher love, might have saved Andy's life. When Andy passed away in 1988 at just 30 years old, Barry was shattered. Losing his baby brother left a wound that never truly healed. Even after decades of triumphs with the Bee Gees, the awards, the recognition, the legacy spanning generations, Andy's absence remained a silent shadow over it all. Every time Barry performed one of Andy's songs or heard his voice on a recording, it felt as though time collapsed, pulling him back to the loss that came far too soon. Yet he also shared that love had outlasted death. Andy remained alive in memory, in music, and in the unbreakable bond of brotherhood. Barry carried Andy with him in every lyric he wrote, every note he sang, and every stage he stepped onto. The truth, he said, was that Andy was never simply the younger brother who ran out of time. He was an inseparable part of the Gibb family story, a presence that helped shape the very fabric of their lives. At 78, Barry Gibb, legendary Bee Gees frontman, finally allowed himself to speak openly in a candid and heartfelt interview, revealing emotions he had carried privately for decades. Reflecting on his brother's life, he summed it up with bittersweet clarity. Andy was a shining star, but he struggled in ways that people didn't fully understand. He was full of talent, full of life, but sometimes the pressures of fame and the lifestyle around him were too much to bear. The loss of Andy, who died so tragically at the age of just 30, left a permanent scar on Barry's life, one he admitted he only came to fully understand with the passing of time. He recalled that Andy's death came just 5 days after his 30th birthday. What should have been a moment of joy and celebration instead turned into one of unbearable grief. With deep regret, Barry remembered their final encounter. "We had a disagreement shortly before his birthday, and I never imagined that would be the last time I'd see him alive. I carry that with me every day." But Barry's memories were not only about that painful ending. He spoke with heartfelt admiration about Andy's charm, his musical brilliance, and the rare ability he had to captivate audiences with both his soulful voice and his natural charisma. Andy had something special, Barry explained, something that touched hearts without effort. People loved him not just for the music, but for who he was, his kindness, his humor, his warmth. But fame can be a double-edged sword, and I wish I could have protected him from it more. That sense of responsibility as an older brother weighed heavily on Barry. He admitted to carrying both guilt and motivation. "I always tried to guide him, to support him," he said softly. "But sometimes love just isn't enough when someone is fighting their own battles." His words during the interview carried equal measures of sorrow and reverence, painting a picture of love both beautiful and bittersweet. Barry also shared personal memories, moments that showed Andy's playful spirit, his dedication to his craft, and the closeness of their family bond. "We were brothers first, musicians second," Barry emphasized. "Music was our language, but it was family that truly defined us. Losing Andy so young was like losing a part of myself, and that feeling never goes away." By speaking so openly, Barry not only honored Andy's memory, but also gave the world a glimpse into the Gibb family's private heartache, a story of love, regret, and brotherhood that endures long after Andy's passing. At 78, Barry's reflections revealed not just truths about Andy, but about the complexity of family love itself. Unconditional, joyful, sometimes devastating, but always eternal. For Barry, sharing these words was never simply about setting the record straight. It was about giving voice to decades of unspoken love, pain, and memory that had lived within him for nearly 40 years.